I forgot last week, but I'm remembering this week to say that I can't go because I'm at Hebrew High, but Wednesday, the 22nd of February, which is today's the 9th, so a couple of weeks. Wednesday night, the 22nd, at Rutgers at the Douglas Student Center is the open to the public Jewish Studies lecture by a professor who's a Jewish Studies professor there at Rutgers, Azan Yadin Israel. And the topic is Temptation Transformed, How the Forbidden Fruit Became an Apple. I know, weird. He must go online on YouTube. He might just go afterwards to check it so he can learn something. Pardon me? Yeah, can we right, exactly. I want it'll be like a you can do an 80 for Brady style road trip. So anyway, so yeah, Douglas Student Center on the 22nd. I went I feel like it was like right around the Yamim Noraim, like right afterwards I had to talk on Kiryas Yo, some scholars from California actually who wrote a long book on the creation of Kiryas Yo, the Satmar town in New York State. Which, by the way, what I learned there, I'll throw this out. Originally, you know where they tried to buy land? Flanders. If you look at, you can Google a New York Times story from before, which is exactly where Karen grew up, and it's exactly before that development was built. So definitely the same piece of land. But the Morris County commissioners Mount Olive successfully pushed them away. Because, of course, with observant Jews, you don't want them living near you and you don't want them living not near you, which, of course, leads to the conclusion that many people, correct, yeah. So if you look at it, the first spot was just there on 206. You can see like the crossroads that they tried to buy, just up 206, south of 80. North. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So north of Chester, south of 80. So yeah, anyway, that's what I did last time. Same thing, Douglas Student Center. There's free parking in the evenings. You can just park in the Douglas lot near there. This is the 22nd, and I think it'll even be in the regular emails, but I wanted to highlight for us. So yes, Temptation Transformed, How the Forbidden Fruit Became an Apple. 7 p.m. Monday, the 22nd of February. Wednesday, the 22nd of February. If it was Monday, I'd go. The Wednesday, 22nd of February. And the same spot, yes, through the Builder Center. So the same spot is at late April when I'm not here. You can go see Robert Alter. And again, I expect a full report in the presentation. For younger, I would ask you to make a Google slideshow presentation. Right. Oh, get ready for age references because we're getting there. So that is the relevant bit. And anything else you have to do? Weiter. So last time we talked about Cain and Abel. Oh, is Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Look at that. Like it's a sacred endeavor. At Rutgers, this is a purely secular project, but here it's supposed to be a sacred endeavor. Good. We have, yeah, exactly. Awesome. The same guy, by the way, who's giving that talk on Adam and Eve. Also, I own one of his books because he wrote a book called For God and Man, biblical imagery in the songs of Bruce Springsteen. And I'm like, if there's a Jewish studies professor at Rutgers writing a book on biblical imagery in the songs of Bruce Springsteen, I'm probably the target audience. Like if I don't buy this book, who's gonna? So if I get a face out of Linda, I know I'm good. Not you, Linda, other yeah, so I've got that. For the grace of God and the good of man, something like that. Yeah. So so last time, story of Cain and Abel. And we got all the way to the murder, right? And sort of this like deep story of like that within us, whatever it might be, jealousy, desire for power, that violence and the potential for violence or acting out is inherent within us, seems to be part of it, and that's true, especially among brothers. Literally just this morning it hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't know how I missed this last week, but obviously like two of the most famous brothers in the world are really publicly going at it, right? And essentially over the same stuff, right? Not even the Super Bowl. Yeah, that too. That's Sunday night. But if you think, Harry is essentially saying that William like doesn't like recognize his existence properly, right? Like doesn't like want to, and Harry's definitely trying to take down, really like to kill his career, as it were. And William, it sort of doesn't want like the accusation. It's like they're going at it. And it's very Cain, and I don't pay all that much attention, but it feels very Cain and Abel-y of these brothers, sort of like can't live side by side. So yeah, that's playing out publicly, and it shows sort of why this is sort of the paradigmatic story.
Yeah, but there's no wife here per se.
Correct.
To stay, because the wife of one of them is the instigator of that, the brother.
Well, it depends on whose side you're on, which one is which right here. Right.
There's no Facebook.
And there's no.
Right. So I have a brother. We we don't battle over who gets the keys to the kingdom. Right.
I have a younger brother, and if I wanted to make my mother crazy, all I had to do was say she liked him best.
And you were right.
And then I wouldn't even watch.
Right. So watch how it played out.
Possible thing that I could ever say to them.
I had two other brothers, and when we would say that, so then you like him better, say you're wrong.
It doesn't just have to be brothers. I have sisters. And I always thought that my youngest sister was my mother's favorite. I was my father's favorite. But...
Rabbi David Wolpe says that when a child asks a parent, which one is your favorite, the only honest answer is depends on when you ask. Yeah, it is a good answer. It's a super good answer. Right. Yeah.
This is the first introduction of the concept of somebody killing.
Yes.
And it seems to be a bang, right?
Yes. With no lead in, they like first they fought and things got closer and closer. It's right. It's one out like the so that's an excellent question. Does he know he can do this? Or is it
spontaneous?
Or is it oops? Is it I mean the right, is it premeditated? So that's now verse 8, and Cain said to his brother, verse 8, chapter 4, and Cain said to his brother Abel, and it was in the field while they were in the field, and Cain rose against his brother Abel and killed him. The Vayakom rose up, Cain al Havel Chicha V'Aragu, and killed him. The again, the Septuagint has some words there that aren't in the Hebrew text, the Masoretic text. The Septuagint says, and Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go out to the field. In which case it suggests premeditation, right? Like sort of like, as it were, I think at once you're supposed to think of these as the first two brothers and to understand them as if there's a social context going on. You have to just do both at once. Like, again, that's just the world that this movie takes place in, right?
This point, Adam and Eve are no longer mentioned.
They're the,
So there's no knowledge of whether he knows what even what death is. Did he see his parents die?
they're definitely still alive.
So he's never seen death before.
Correct. And that will, correct.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, they did sacrifice an animal. Oh, good point, yeah. Which, so given that that's like the one thing we know, good point, like that's a significant thing. They sacrifice animals. So they know, right.
But not humans.
They don't know that about humans. In fact, this will become significant later, if you follow the story. This is the only death that takes place for some time. The only human death that takes place for some time. We're not told. Right, there's definitely no human death. And the sacrifice seems to be known and deliberate, right? And by Abel. Obviously, Abel's the one killing animals. Cain doesn't have animals to kill. So again, that's all we know. We can, again, this is the Midrashic. You see how you can't resist the Midrashic impulse. You have to fill in the backstory. But and how you fill it in sort of like is like what color it takes. Yeah, so we don't know. It does seem to be premeditated, and obviously God thinks that there's a murderous impulse there, because that's the whole point. Like, again, let's like zip through this. The human known Eve as woman. Yeah,
They are.
we don't know how old they are. Obviously old enough to work.
Yeah, but they could be working them at 7 and 8 years old.
Right. I mean, less likely 7 and 8. I would say they're at least young men, right? Like sort of like they're not. It's hard to It's hard to imagine them younger than 15, as it were, like whatever age is here, like sort of or older than, they're not old men. The human knew Eve his woman, and she conceived and bore Cain and said, I have gotten me a man with the Lord. And she bore as well his brother Abel, as well. Again, the sense of spare to get back to. And Abel became a herder of sheep, while Cain was a tiller of the soil. And it happened in the course of time that Cain brought from the fruit of the soil an offering to the Lord. And Abel too had brought from the choice firstling of his flock. And the Lord regarded Abel in his offering, but he did not regard Cain in his offering. And Cain was very incensed, and his face fell. And the Lord said to Cain, why are you incensed? And why is your face fallen? For whether you offer well or whether you do not, at the tent flap sin crouches, and for you is its longing, but you will rule over it. As we said, you can rule over it either way. In any event here, God, that whole consult session clearly thinks that God thinks things are about to go off the rails, and he's trying to diffuse it, right? This is we're sending Anthony Blinken to the Middle East or whatever to try and cool things off. Side note, do you look at the Times of Israel this morning? The government in Israel proposed a bill that will send you to jail for wearing a talit at the Western Wall, ladies.
Oh.
It's about time.
Yeah, thank God. Thank somebody's finally and also immodest stress by the definition of the Haredi chief rabbi of the wall. So yeah, about time.
They have nothing else to worry about.
Good thing they have nothing else to worry about other than criminalizing 6 months, maximum 6 months in jail, or I can't remember, a few thousand shekel fine. So that will be shut down. Yeah, no, it's that any and no singing without prior approval of the Haredi chief rabbi of the wall in any of the areas surrounding. No, like nowhere.
What did they-
Yeah.
The way it should be. Now, if you're gonna work,
I'm just saying that this was, anyway, I saw this where I'm like, oh, great. So that, there we are. It's a place for all Jews. Yeah, so anyway, he knows. People do think like, so this is trying to cool things down. God steps in to cool things down, right? That seems to be it, right? Sort of like you're angry and you can master your emotions. And then the next scene is not that, right? So is it premeditated? It seems like you can only read the God speech as seeing that we're going down this road and trying to urge an exit off of it. And he doesn't, because people don't always do. Maybe they often will do what they want to do without considering the effect on everybody. That's the link between these two things. Right? So that. So that's why, right, then verse 8, and Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go into the field, which is in, Alter includes it, but notes that it's not in the Masoretic text, the traditional Hebrew text. And when they were in the field, Cain rose against his brother Abel and killed him. And the Lord said to Cain, where's Abel, your brother? A question that's reminiscent of, where are you? Same thing, like I'm giving you an opening to confess, as it were. And here we know God knows the answer. And he said, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Shomer chi anochi, shomer from like what, it's really like watchman. Like keeper is sort of like hard, like you can't change it in English because everyone knows, am I my brother's keeper? But really it's like am I the guardian of, am I the watcher of? Okay, so right. And so, am I my brother's keeper? Look, am I supposed to be keeper? Am I responsible for everyone around here? By the way, what's the answer? Yes. It's not answered here in the text, or the whole book is the answer, as it were, but like the answer is yes.
4 people in the whole world right now. Right now there's 3. God has no idea where this 4th person is.
Right, exactly. I don't know. Like you see, it's such a it's such a great response. I don't know. Like what's the, like, how am I supposed to know? The okay, no. I am a lo yadati. It's so funny. Like the yeah. So gives an answer, passes the buck, which again seems to be this now we've discerned a pattern. We have 3, which officially makes the pattern, right? Of Adam does it, Eve does it, and Cain does it. And he said, Vayomer, Ma'asita, kol damei achicha, zo'akim alai min adama. And God says, what have you done? Friedman translates, the sound, your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. Kol, so kol is like, it's a noise. It's the same thing in this week's Parsha. When the word kol, kuf, with is the same thing that is the thunder on Mount Sinai in this week's portion when they get the 10 Commandments. Same word here, like sort of like there's a sound going on, or altars. And he said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries to me from the soil, and so cursed shall you be by the soil that gaped with its mouth to take your brother's blood from your hand. If you till the soil, it will no longer give you its strength. A restless wanderer shall you be on the earth." And Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is too great to bear. Now that you have driven me this day from the soil, I must hide from your presence. I shall be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. And the Lord said to him, therefore, whoever kills Cain shall suffer 7-fold vengeance. The Lord set a mark upon Cain so that whoever found him would not slay him. All right, a lot going on there. So first of all, he kills him like this sort of like violence within us, right? That's there. And then the standard passing the buck and the question, am I my brother's keeper? To which we're supposed to know the answer, even if the text doesn't answer it for you. It's a nice literary device, right? Like sort of, not my responsibility is the that's the murderer's.
The likely answer, but it's the wrong answer.
Right. Um,
And where was he
And
gonna
the-
hide that God wouldn't find him? You know,
right,
and-
right. So this, like that. Notice that. What have you done? And it's almost ma'asita. Again, it's an exclamation rather than a question. Kol damei achicha, the blood of your brother, so akimalai, screams to me, mina adama, from the ground. It's this really incredible image. Your brother's blood spilled on the ground, cries out to God, like sort of like this, like God, as it were, like hears injustice, like sort of on this on this deep level, and clearly finds it disturbing, right? And the word for blood is in the plural, damei achicha, which, as Rashi says, why is it in the plural? Because it's not just his blood; it's the blood of all the potential descendants that would come from him. Are crying out to me from the ground. Like it's not just him that you killed; it's like all these other people that there was potential, who now will never exist because of what you did. From the ground, like the gut, so the ground soaks in the blood, and as such, and now you're cursed from the ground, right? V'ata arurata mina adama, asher patsa et pia, kacheret damei achicha miadecha. Now you're cursed from the ground that opened its mouth to take your brother's blood from your hand. What did the ground do?
Nothing.
It soaked up the blood, and by soaking the blood, sort of like covers the crime, as it were. And so the ground is like almost it's almost as if the ground is an accomplice, like or he wanted the ground to be an accomplice. Or of course, a natural thing to do if you kill someone and want to hide it is that you bury, right? Yeah. So like you're trying to make the ground an accomplice, and so you will be forever cursed from the ground, which is similar to what Adam got before, right? For Adam eating the apple or fig, or date or etrog, the ground is cursed, and he's got to work it from now on. And now, Cain, it seems almost Cain, like specifically, like it's not going to work for you. You can plant all you want. The ground won't give you anything. You're going to have to, like this is your punishment. Because you like made the ground an accomplice, the ground now won't work for you. When you work the ground, it won't continue to give you its potency to you. You'll be a roamer and a rover over the earth.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
This verse and 2 verses hence says the same exact thing. And it's a collective punishment of all the Jewish people.
The Jewish people.
You will be a fugitive and a wanderer. And somehow the Jews have paid that price, not being welcomed and wandering the earth and not belonging anywhere ever since.
Right. So, well,
Twice he mentions this, twice.
right. So, right. Once, so we have doubters present.
Or anti-Semites have used this to characterize the Jews.
Well, so Jews are famously exiled for a length of time, many thousands of years from when this was written, though for a different punishment, for a different sin, right? God will say repeatedly,
Killing Christ.
Well, no. Well, so yeah, I mean, there are those who will say that, but in the Tanakh, God will say, you will be exiled if you don't follow the mitzvot. If you're worshiping idols, if you run a corrupt society, you don't get to stay here. Like that's both in the Torah and later in the Tanakh, that the promised land isn't something that you get no matter what. It's only something that you get to live in if you run a just society. So exile is punishment, is a theme. That's the link between this, meaning between Cain and the later Israelites story, is that exile is seen as a punishment for misbehavior, but the Israelite case doesn't map onto this case except being an echo of it. So again, the Tanakh will say, obviously, Jews aren't exiled for the killing of Christ or anything like this. They're exiled because they run a corrupt society. And so the Babylonians are going to come and destroy it. Like that's most of the prophets, right? Is that if you don't do this properly, you will be kicked out of the land. So exile is a punishment. This is the first time we see it. And that exile specifically has makes you uniquely vulnerable, as opposed to if you're settled in place. So Navanad, you're going to be sort of like roaming eternally. And then 13, and Cain said to Adonai, my crime is greater than I can bear. Gadol oni minso. The punishment, either way, like what punishment is definitely like the sense of like what he means. Here, you've expelled me from the face of the ground today, and I'll be hidden from your presence. I'll be a roamer and rover on the earth, and anyone who finds me will kill me, which is if I don't have a home, I'm vulnerable. If everyone knows that I can't settle anywhere, I'm going to be a marked man. Everyone knows that they can like rob me and kill me there's no one who will stand up for me. Like I'm too vulnerable. This is too much. Again, that's what I said before. You have to understand. Right, two things are going on at once. Is both that these are like the first people, and also you can say either just the world is populated. We only get our screen only showed these people, but there's other things going on. You might watch a movie and it gives you the story of one couple falling in love in New York City or whatever, and there are other people going on off screen. The other things going on off screen, you just don't know about it, right? Because we're just following this story. So you could say that, that there's just more going on off screen with, other people in the building. Or he's not thinking next week. Cain is going to live a long time. It's like Adam's going to live a long time, and there's going to be lots of other people on the earth by the time, we can guess, Cain dies, right? Lots of other people. So, and he uniquely will bear this punishment. So you can say that if you want.
But we're already talking about other people that we don't know where they came from. Or maybe you talked about this in a week I was missing.
So I would say the simple answer actually is at the beginning of chapter 5. So if you want an answer from within the text, chapter 5 says that Adam and Eve had Seth, which is later verse 4 of chapter 5, and the human Adam's days after fathering Seth were 800 years, and he fathered sons and daughters. So Adam lives and fathers sons and daughters and then Seth lives and fathers sons and daughters. Then Enosh lives and fathers sons and daughters. And Canaan lives and fathers sons and daughters. Mahal lives and fathers sons and daughters, etc., etc., etc. Where are all the other people coming from? It turns out there are sons and daughters that are born. And so who are all these other people? You read about them in chapter 5. Why does everyone say, I don't know where they came from? Because they don't read to chapter 5. Chapter 5 is seen as a list of irrelevant begats. But the irrelevant begats, it turns out, aren't irrelevant. And it's part of the story. And if you want to say where'd they come from, read to chapter 5, and it says lots of people. Who is he afraid of? The lots of people we read about in chapter 5. Where's the wife comes from? The lots of people we read about in chapter 5.
But it says Adam lives a long time, and begets all these children. Is he still with Eve, or is he with someone else?
After the scene with the serpent, Eve is never mentioned again in the entire Tanakh. And by the way, after chapter 4 here, after our little scene here with Cain, Cain will also never be mentioned again. Cain, so and we'll talk about like what that might mean, but like but the focus shifts.
But that in and of itself shows that it's a punishment with both of them. I mean, they're never mentioned again.
Mhm.
Okay, so they're like, goodbye, they're done. They
Right.
killed them off, so to
Right.
speak.
So you'll see like so this will be significant. Watch the line of Cain and watch the line of Seth. Like that sort of like is I'm going to say like what you don't want me to say, which is that all those begats are important. Like all this sort of stuff where it's like one's eyes glaze over are there on purpose.
Isn't there, a problem here in that when Cain and Abel are born, there's no dating of it. We don't know how old. Adam
Correct.
is, whereas Seth, Adam is 130.
Right.
So wouldn't it be that these people came long after Cain was gone, and aren't the people referred?
Until after he's gone? No, because the timelines are so super long. Because I mean, we don't get the same lifespan numbers for Cain's line that we do for Seth's line. But if you look in the back of the book that Alan has, in the back of the art scroll, they have a way back on page 2024. They have like a graph of everyone's life and how long they live. So you can see, so you can map out like who is alive when who else was alive.
Adam, Seth, and Adam to Jacob.
Yeah, Adam, right, from Adam to Jacob. And it's only like the main types of it, and it's following the line of Seth. But you see, I don't know, it's like one of those things like there's only one of like of the named people there in Genesis chapter 5 who dies in the flood, or who seems to die in the flood, and it's Methuselah. Methuselah, the one who lives the longest, 968, his death year is the flood year. The flood year being, what is it, 1656? By the way, it's fun because they do the numbers. The Tower of Babel is 1996. At which point, yeah. At which point Abraham's already alive, because Abraham is born in 1948. From creation, right? Like if we're in 5783, right? Like so, yeah, great chart.
I'm just amazed that the rain that began falling, that became the flood on the 17th of Keshvan. And I just didn't notice that at all when we went through.
You went through the dice that so that it does say on the like X day of the X month. Yeah.
This is a factual book.
Yeah. Well, right, no, but they're following like what's in the text, like Cheshvan just being the name for the 8th month. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, he is afraid of people. Now, again, you can say like, would he be aware of all that? So like, again, like just be in the story. But Yeah, so he's afraid that he's going to be vulnerable.
That's understandable. These were groups of hunter gatherers, wherever. You go from one tribe to another, you were vulnerable.
You definitely aren't vulnerable. That's the whole point of being in a hunter-gatherer tribe, is that like you're safe with your group, but you're not necessarily safe with another group. So so he's vulnerable, but notice that he does something here that didn't happen in the previous chapter, which is God, like everything else has been the same, like violation of norm, the inviting of what have you done, the passing of the buck, then the punishment, and Cain, unlike Adam and Eve, says, argues, appeals, starts to argue. Too much, not fair. What are these sentencing guidelines? Not like, what's up? Like, which is a whole thing. And even more amazing than Cain, with the blood on his hands, saying, like, so it'd be like, ah, too much. I just killed him. Like, really? You can do this to me? Weirder than that is God's response is, oh, you know, you're right. Maybe I was a little harsh. Okay.
Thought it was a witch hunt.
Yeah. So God gives, right, how long it took us to get to. Waiting for you to shout, liar, or whatever you disagree with from the gallery, right? So God amazingly, so Cain amazingly appeals, and God amazingly is like, yeah, maybe you're right. Like, it's again, the God that people think is in the Bible, not so much here, right? Like, is changes the sentence, like sort of like, therefore, anyone who kills Cain, he'll be avenged sevenfold, meaning like sort of like, again, your protection is that anyone who comes for you will get much worse than normally would otherwise be the case.
And we'll know about it.
Right.
Somebody has to know that if you touch this guy, you're in big trouble.
Right. Right, exactly. And so he gets a mark, and the mark isn't, so the mark of Cain in English is used as a reference to something shameful, but in fact, it's protection.
It's also saying that murder against natural laws.
Exactly, against natural law, which is important, meaning this week in the Torah, again, we'll read the 10 Commandments, where it will say, don't murder, right? Not kill. And he's not there. You know, Cain wasn't there at the foot of Mount Sinai. How is he supposed to know? And the answer is, you're supposed to know.
The rationalization of God always intriguing. He's above it all, and he's in the midst of it. Well, I can talk to him, I can negotiate with him, you know, I can plead my sentence. Is he in the mix? Is he above the mix?
It's weird. Like, again, chapter 1, God is above the mixed, right? I spoke and it was. Chapter 2, God is like tinkering in the workshop, right? Creating stuff and saying, well, this work, is this a good companion? Is this a good companion? Is this a good companion? And chapter 3 is the beleaguered parent, sort of like, what have you done? Why? And giving them punishments, and then again, like walking back the punishment. So I'm kicking you out, but here, wear a coat so that you'll be warm. And here, somewhat similarly, like again, a punishment, and then, right? Yeah, I think that there is very much a sense of trial and error, which will continue in the chapters to come. A sense of trial and error, because Cain, the sentence isn't removed, but the severity of it is lessened. Cain now walks the earth knowing that he is comparatively protected.
You'll have to work hard.
Still has to work hard. And it's still not gonna be good. He's still punished. He's still punished.
And he lost his job.
And he lost his job. Yeah, and right, because his main thing was being a farmer, and now you can't be that anymore.
It's in your ship. He has to be inscribed, and talk about our sin, just, if we keep at it, the severity will be, we don't ask. for the
Right.
severity.
The severity to be lessened, right? Whatever it might be, can it be less severe?
It also says in the entire Tucker, who shall be stable, who shall wander.
Right. Yes, wandering, to Rich's point, being a not good thing. Like not, okay, this isn't
Not secure.
correct. This isn't bohemian van life. It's yeah.
One of the college that reads, I was reading something, this is a long time ago, by some white supremacist talking about the mark of Cain. We talk about it here, it's protection. He said that was the blacks, that was the mark of Cain. And he was trying to make it a mark of shame.
Right. So
Neo-Nazi, literature.
right, yeah, so you do that sort of thing, like, which is using biblical stories to bigoted ends is not uncommon, right? Where whatever human differences are brought up as signs of, oh, these people are eternally cursed by God, and because I happen to know that, that means that I can continue the piling on of it, right? That so right, mark of Cain is used that way, and then Noah's children will be used the same way. Not the opposite, which is that you're supposed to then protect. Anyway, and though there's no indication that this mark is something heritable, that goes like down through the generations, as it were. Yeah, so who knows what it is? Is it, is it a shirt? Like he's often like portrayed as like having a horn or something like that. Like, who knows? Is it does it get tattooed? Like, I don't know, there's lots of different options. And again, this is sort of like the Midrashic opening. Like, if you're going to draw this as a picture, how do you draw it? There's lots of different ways you could. Yeah, so it's just an opening to like think about what it might be. Yeah, God accepts the possibility, the appeal, which is itself amazing. And Cain went out from God's presence, again, like God being seen as being in a specific spot, and lived in the land of Nod, of roving. Friedman translated Nod is sometimes the land itself, and meaning as a proper noun, or it's just also the word for wandering, right? So he's in the land of wandering.
Rabbi?
Eden, Kadmat Eden. Yep.
Hertz says Cain is a repentant sinner. I didn't gather where Cain was repentant.
Yeah. I don't know if I agree.
Not only that, he says God's mercy to those who repent is infinitely greater than that of man. So God is granting him mercy. Did he repent?
Does he repent? Not in the text. Like so again, you can make a midrash and say that they repent. So that's the if you want to say my punishment is more than I can bear, then he is unrepentant and he's just crying that I am that I can't handle this, lessen the sentence because I won't last the sentence. If he says my crime is greater than I can bear, then that gives you the opening for repentance. The guilt from what I've done and how bad I feel for it, that's too much for me. Then he's repented. He's like, I feel so terrible. You're right. I can't believe this. And then you can say he's repented. So if it's my punishment is greater than I can bear, then no good. Then he's just then he's just whining, right? Saying, but if he says my crime, what does our scroll go with?
It's a question. Is my iniquity too great to be borne?
Is my iniquity too great to be borne? Again, no punctuation in the Hebrew, so whatever you like. So if it's that, is my iniquity too great to be borne? What is that? Is my sin too great to be borne? Is it
Where's Russian?
the I was all ready this morning for chapter 5. I thought that we
Learn those.
I know is the man called okay, Rashi.
Rashi understands the phrase as a question, my iniquity too great for me to forgive it.
Right, what have you done? The sounding brother, they're there for you. Christ, right. The Cain said, is my iniquity too great to be borne? Rashi's comment 13. Gadol Oni Butema. Which is Rashi's way of saying, phrase it as a question, literally like sort of like with surprise or with astonishment is how you're supposed to read that sentence. Because he, doesn't have Rashi's keyboard doesn't have question marks and things like that. So he has to actually explain it. So Butema means read it as a question or read it as a statement of like of surprise. Telling you bear the higher ones, the lower ones. That Cain is asking God, like almost like so it's almost as if we're in uncharted territory here. Can somebody survive this? Not Abel. Abel's dead, but Cain's asking of himself. So this, when you kill someone, does that mean you automatically die? Like, which would be logical, right? If punishments fit the crime, then in theory, as soon as I kill someone, I should drop dead, or my punishment's going to be death, right? Which is what will happen later on in the Torah. Like there'll be capital punishment for an eye for an eye, like that it's almost that the world needs to be brought into balance. If I spill blood, then my blood must be spilt to balance things out. Otherwise, there's an imbalance. Lynn.
The story is split. With Adam and Eve, God said, don't eat from the tree.
Right.
And then God said there were going to be consequences. We don't really see what those consequences are. In the written story here, it's not like God has told Cain, don't harm your brother. Don't kill him for sure. Since you did do the right thing, and now we're talking about punishment. So there's
Things I think they assume like this is the natural law point, which is that it's not like I got 15 trees here. Guess which one you're not supposed to eat from? Like that's not fair. That's ridiculous, right? Like so God has to say, don't do this. It seems that the assumption is that human beings are born with the innate knowledge, not that murder is wrong, and that he's supposed to know that. Or rather, not that he's supposed to know that he does know that. That might be why, in one version, he's like, let's go into the field. Why are you going in the field? Hi.
Why did God allow people to remain dead?
Why not just zap him back to life?
I mean, if he was able to, put breath into
That
why, Cain, okay, did something and slew his brother, but.
yeah, I saw the first Superman as well. When he goes like where he like spins the world back. The right. So good question. I actually never thought of that one. The like, why not just zap Abel back life? It sort of sets the precedent for how the world's going to work, right? The way the world's going to work is injustices are going to stand And that if you want to correct them, then don't do them or create a society where they're punished, right? But like, if you want me to go back and cover your errors, I'm not going back to talk to the teacher to get your grade changed. You're like, this is the way it works. So it is a good question, though. Again, it sort of like sets up the way the universe is going to work. All right.
Your point about he should know. Number one, he took him aside, got him out of the list, no one said. Then he said he tried to deny it to God, like, well, you know, so he obviously knew he was doing wrong.
Yes. Right. Well, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Good point. Yeah. I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Like when you just killed him, like is pretty damning. If you thought it was fine, you'd be like, oh, I just, you know, right. I just plunged the plow into him. He's over there. He's probably still where I left him. Like the, like that's, yeah. So he knows.
Yeah, according to Rashi, when God asks, what have you done?
Right.
He is allowing Cain to confess.
Right.
And show repentance, which he doesn't.
Right. Correct. Literally, Rashi will say like that it's supposed to be calming word, like to get into a conversation with calming words. So, what have you done? And that it's not. He's not meaning. It's not an accusation. It's not an intense accusation. He's trying to notice how Rashi in both these sort of things that we do is giving little like almost grammatical cues, like how to read the text. It's not, sometimes it's like midrash, there's what's going on in the background. And sometimes it's like, read this. It's like, it's not, where is Abel? It's like, where's Abel, your brother? Like it's like he says, read it calmly as an invitation. The same thing, like the, is my sin too great to be born? Like we've seen 3 different ways of reading that, and he reads it as a question.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming then in the Tanakh, there's no results in terms of human tragedy, grieving, mourning. You know, we're not getting any part of that story. We're not seeing grief or mourning or familial reaction.
Right. What do Adam and Eve's reaction on one son killing the other is not present. Cain's reaction seems to be not one of grief, but rather of self-defense, unless you read Rashi, which does feel like where he feels so wrecked by guilt, he says, oh, will I even survive this? I mean, you can read it that way. Or you can read it that he's not repentant. But either way, you don't get that scene, because the text is very terse, right? I mean, we're on the whole thing is 16 verses from the birth of Cain to his leaving the area after his punishment is 16 verses. So it's just much is left out. All right, what I'm going to do is we're going to pause here, and I keep forgetting, but my desire is to do Kaddish Rabbanan, because I don't have many minyanim that I get to go to. So I can do Kaddish Rabbanan for having studied a bit of Torah this morning. Which is, I mean, it's in the Siddur, page 13, whatever it is, but do that. Yikadav v'yikrash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach kirutei v'amlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chay l'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru amen, eish mei Rabbam v'rach l'lam olmei Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemeid kudesha b'rei Ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushchata v'nechmata da'miran ba'alma v'imru amen al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan v'al Talmidehom v'al kol Talmidehom v'al kol ma'an daskin v'oraita diva atar adin v'diva chol atar v'atar v'hei l'chon shlama rabba hina v'chisa v'rachmin v'chayin arichin v'zana revicha v'kadam min kadam avon v'yishmaya v'imru amen eish shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim tovim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen say shalom b'momav hu b'rachamav ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Thank you. All right. Next week, same bat time.